Bernie Sanders weighed in on the midterm results, and he made an interesting point about Trump's beliefs and what senators should do to exploit them.
I want to ask you about Andrew Gillum and Beto O'Rourke's losses last night. Some were taking that as an indication of where the Democratic Party really is right now, that it's actually more moderate than it is progressive, and that there's a lesson in Beto O'Rourke's loss that he was farther left than needed. Even he didn't convince any people, Republicans, who may not have liked Anderson. Go ahead.
Anderson, I have been hearing that argument forever. And that was the argument that led to Republican control of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. It led to the loss of something like 1,000 legislative seats in state houses all over this country. Democrats can't be progressive. We got to be Republican light. Man, that is such a total mistake and a bad way to look at the political world.
Do you believe when President Trump now is talking about bipartisanship, do you believe that 1%, or do you believe that at all?
Anderson, this is what I do believe, and this will surprise some of the viewers. I believe that Trump really does not politically believe in anything. You know, he used to believe in a Medicare for all system. He used to believe in taxing the wealthy. He used to be pro-choice. I don't think he believes in anything. I think his only concern is to win elections. That's what I think. And I think, maybe I'm wrong on this, that if we passed strong legislation raising the minimum wage, and in the first year of a 4-year phase-in for Medicare for all, that calls for lowering the eligibility age for Medicare from 65, which it currently is, to 55, covering all children in this country, young people in this country, with a Medicare for all proposal, and lowering the cost of prescription drugs. Do you know what? I think if we pass that legislation, you would probably have a Trump saying, this is a great piece of legislation. How great a president am I for supporting this thing? So I think what the Democrats have got to be is bold, speak to the needs of where the American people are on economic issues, and I think we'll have good public policy and set the stage for the next elections.
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Anderson Cooper's loaded, shitty question. The data points in the exact opposite direction. So he's like, people are pointing at Gillum and Beto, and they're saying, they didn't win, so obviously to run to the left is a bad idea. We should be more moderate. Anderson, you act as if no moderate candidates won, and we can't empirically break this down. I mean, the only, right-wing Democrat that really ended up hanging on was Joe Manchin. All the rest of them, Heidi Heitkamp, Claire McCaskill, Joe Donnelly, got their asses handed to them. The best data point on this is what happened to Joe Donnelly versus what happened to Sherrod Brown. Joe Donnelly is a right-wing Democratic senator from Indiana, and he lost by about 8 points. So his whole campaign was, I'm like the Republicans, and he lost by 8 points to an actual Republican. Now, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, the state right next to Indiana, right next door. Sherrod Brown is a Democrat who wasn't afraid of being a Democrat, and he ended up winning by about 8 points. In fact, Sherrod Brown led the charge against the Wall Street deregulation bill in the Senate. So what that tells me is, hold on here. The answer is to move left. Now, he brought up the example of Beto and Gillum. Yeah, but Beto and Gillum and Ojeda prove our point, not your point. Fucking Texas was competitive. Beto almost knocked off Ted Cruz in Texas. If you ran a standard Democrat, right-wing Democrat there pretending to be like Ted Cruz, he would have got fucking 35% of the vote. Now, Gillum, another great example, because David Sirota crunched the numbers on this. The last two examples of people who ran for the Florida governor seat on the Democratic side, they ended up losing by a wider margin than Gillum lost by, and it went to an automatic recount, and Gillum still might win. He's only down by 0.3 of a percentage point? I mean, he did phenomenally well, and that's with, by the way, he had so much momentum and so much grassroots energy behind him. And I think he probably would have edged out the election by a point or two if he stayed with his primary strategy, even with like tampering down that momentum and trying to be more moderate in the general. He still might actually take it. And I would think if he does take it, it's despite that strategy, not because of that strategy. As you could tell, Anderson Cooper categorizes Gillum as like, oh, he ran too far left. It's unbelievable. No matter what happens, that will always be their answer. Like they look at Hillary Clinton losing in 2016, and they don't say, oh shit, being a moderate is a terrible idea, and that doesn't sell as much as being an unapologetic lefty. They look at Hillary Clinton, and they genuinely believe, oh, the problem was Bernie pushed her too far to the left. That was the problem. Their answer will always be run further right, be more corporatist, be more moderate. That will always be their answer. And they're dead wrong. And again, Ojeda, an even better example. Plus 49 GOP district. It was one of the most Republican districts in the goddamn country. He ended up losing by about 12. One of the most Republican districts in the entire country, plus 49, he only lost by 12. What a colossal charge. What a monumental charge. So we have to keep everything in perspective here. The only areas where I'd say, okay, you know what? It's okay to not run left and you can be more moderate. The only areas where I'd say that, high income areas. That's it. Because populism, going further left, works in right-wing areas. It works in left-wing areas. As long as we're talking about middle class or poor areas, that's how you run. So in like 95% of the areas around the country, yes, run left. And the data bears that out completely. Okay. Oh, and the ballot initiatives are another point to make on that front. Of course, I don't know how I missed that. The ballot initiatives, like 80% of the left-wing ballot initiatives succeeded, which again shows you on the actual issues, people are on the left. Okay, now the final point here is what Bernie alluded to at the end there. Now, I don't think that if you make the right arguments, you can eventually push Trump to sign a Medicare for All bill. I think there is a chance of doing that with a living wage bill, not with a Medicare for All bill, particularly because he wrote that op-ed recently where he shits all over Medicare for All, even though it's true he used to believe in Medicare for All. But this idea is an idea that needs to become one of the main strategies on the left in dealing with Trump, which is use the fact that he doesn't believe anything against him, because he doesn't. He doesn't actually believe anything. He's a fucking self-aggrandizing buffoon narcissist. And all he goes, my ratings, what are my ratings? And he's doing that while balancing doing the bidding of the economic elites in the establishment. But the fact that he doesn't really believe in anything means you can leverage that against him. You can do that. So even if you don't win on the Medicare for All front when he's president, or the living wage front, or whatever it may be, to use those arguments is very powerful because it does apply pressure to him. And at the same time, that really shores up your base. That really shores up the Democratic base to go vote for you in the next election in overwhelming numbers. If you're fighting for Medicare for All and you're using every tool you have in your toolbox, including leveraging the fact that the president doesn't believe in anything, but he used to believe in Medicare for All, use that against him. Ro Khanna is the best at this. In a fucking committee hearing, he quoted all of Donald Trump's, hey, here's what the president said about Medicare for All. And he quoted all of it, and he's like, Mr. President, I agree with you. Join me and Bernie, and we'll pass Medicare for All. We'll do it now. This is how you fight. And that works not just in the realm of policy, where it has the best chance of working, even though it'll probably fail under Trump, but politics, that's how you win in the long run. So I love that idea, and all the Democrats should get on board with that. Use the fact that Trump doesn't believe anything and use that against him in a way that's beneficial to you.